Peace, Love, Liberty Radio version 4.1. Initializing upgrades. Accessing peace. Existing without violence. With the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Ashes to ashes, we're falling down. Slaves to the men that stole the crown. There's a warning sign, like a blazing sun. You don't want to see because you're having fun. But those who control all the information celebrate and lie to the people to keep them watching.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, and today is Wednesday. That means it's the day that I answer your questions. It's the Ask Me Anything. And, you know, I mentioned something offhand last week about the way my brain works. And I was sitting at a Chinese restaurant eating crab legs, because that's what I do when I go to Chinese restaurants, is I eat all of their crab legs. But I was sitting there eating the crab legs, and I started thinking about, you know, like, what's the largest thing with an exoskeleton? And I mentioned that, you know, sort of in passing last week. And, well, don't you know, somebody actually sent me an email saying, I really want to know what is the largest thing with an exoskeleton. So I started doing some research to find out what is the largest thing that is an exoskeleton. And, well, I found some very interesting things. There used to be some really, really large things that were exoskeletons. And some people will refer to them as anthropods. But basically, think anything that would be a crustacean or an insect. And there's a couple of other things that fit within the category. But there's a list from a website called listinbest.com where they list out what they consider the 10 largest anthropods on Earth. But they actually don't list the largest living one. But they do mention they have arachnids, and of course that being spiders and scorpions. Some of them can grow up to be about 29 centimeters long, weighing 57 grams. And I'm not good at the conversions necessarily between the metrics and the U.S. measuring system, but I think 29 centimeters is just under 10 inches, I believe. I could be wrong. 57 grams would be about 2 ounces, because there's 30 or 28 grams in an ounce, so 57 grams would be about 2 ounces. So not exactly a heavy thing, but can get quite large. They also list brachiopods, which would be freshwater crustaceans. There are some that can get up to about 10 centimeters, and the largest can reach over a foot. So basically, think about your shrimp or your crawdads, things of those sorts. Centipedes, some of them can reach about 33 centimeters long, found in South America and the Caribbean. And there was, keyword there, was a giant millipede referred to as the Anthropleura, which could get up to about 6 feet long. However, that thing died about 300 million years ago, give or take, a couple of days, and adjust for your time zone and daylight shifting time. Now, Real Clear Science has a little bit more info on that weird creature that I just mentioned, the Anthropleura, and they have this write-up because apparently there were a couple of other things, fossils, that were discovered recently that were species of ancient arthropods, that rival the largest ever found. The findings were detailed in a publication of journal Nature. Hundreds of millions of years ago, arthropods, which include modern-day spiders, insects, and crustaceans, were much larger. And they say we're not talking about the size of a small dog. An extinct millipede called Anthropleura reached up to 8.5 feet long, making it the largest land invertebrate ever known to exist. And then there's another one, Jacalopterus rhinomnia, which extended 8.2 feet, dwelled in the water, and they have a picture of it. It looks like sort of a mix between a lobster and a shrimp. It's actually quite interesting to look at. And they say at over 7 feet in length, the new species, Aegirocasis binmulei, fits in just behind them. It was discovered in Morocco and dated back to about 480 million years ago. Again, adjust for time zones and daylight shifting time. That creature that I just mentioned, they abbreviate it here, A. binmulei, may have been the sperm whale of the ancient oceans. The comparison comes from how it looks, a bit like a serrated feather duster, but from how it ate. Notice the net-like appendage jutting from the front of the animal, and they do have a picture of this thing, and it's got like this sperm whale sort of tooth thing coming out from its mouth. Says the two spines on either side sandwich brush-like setae, which are used to catch microscopic plankton. This weird animal was a filter breeder, which set it apart from many other arthropods, especially the larger ones. And then they have a little bit more information about that specific thing, but they ask the question about, or rather they answer the question about why ancient arthropods were able to grow to such a large size. And they say, first, oxygen was much more concentrated in the atmosphere 400 million years ago, making up about 30% of the atmosphere instead of 21% today. Arthropods rely on air flowing through their bodies in order to take in oxygen. They don't have lungs like us, and extra oxygen basically served as added fuel for growth. Second, and more simply, there weren't any larger predators. But that's not the only reason that they don't get so huge. But what's the current largest thing that's alive that's an arthropod? Stay tuned to find out. When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.xyz, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.xyz today to find out more. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Maybe you want to get your hands on some arthropods, specifically some arachnids. Well, what if I told you you could do that without having to worry about the arachnids biting you? Well, how can you do that? Well, if they're silver. And yes, there is such a thing as a silver spider, and Roberts Brokerage carries them. It's a 1-ounce round that has a spider on it. What, you thought I was talking about like actual spiders made out of silver? No, that's just weird. But you put a spider on, the shape of a spider on a 1-ounce round, and yeah, makes perfect sense. You can get that and so much more in the precious metal category, gold and silver from Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. And people have been buying gold and silver from Roberts and Roberts for nearly 40 years. They take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. So call them today for some knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760 or online at rrbi.co. That's RRBI, as in Roberts and Roberts Brokerage Incorporated, rrbi.co. So what is the largest living arthropod, the largest living thing with an exoskeleton? Well, it's something called the coconut crab. And no, I'm not talking about, cooking up crab with some coconut, but you certainly could do that. And apparently this thing is absolutely delicious, and it is colossal. The coconut crab, native to islands in the Indian and Southern Pacific Oceans. They are truly humongous, according to Mental Floss, and they can weigh up to 9 pounds and measure 3 feet from leg to leg. Coconut crabs are the largest land-living arthropod, the phylum and joint-legged creatures that include crabs, insects, spiders, scorpions. Even Charles Darwin was stunned by the monstrous size of the coconut crab. But be aware, occasionally a viral photo circulates that exaggerates the size of the coconut crab. One biologist explains the coconut crab in that infamous photo is normal size, but the trash can that it's next to is unusually small. Coconut crabs are also hermit crabs. Where does such a bizarre animal fit in the animal kingdom? Are they lobsters, tarantulas, space aliens? In fact, no, they are hermit crabs. You may have seen smaller hermit crabs on a trip to the beach. Hell, maybe you had one as a kid. They take shelter inside abandoned snail shells, carrying them around as a portable home. But if coconut crabs are hermit crabs, then why don't they live inside shells? Well, they do when they're young and start off small. They hulk out of their shells like other crabs. Hatchling coconut crabs begin their lives floating freely at sea. After about a month of eating and growing, they find a small shell and move in. The little coconut crab carries their mobile home as they begin to transition to a land-based life. A seashell is nice. It's a nice protected place to live, but it also has its drawbacks. As a crab gets bigger, its shell gets tighter, like an old pair of shoes on a kid who's growing too fast. The crab needs to find a bigger shell and make a quick switch, and that larger home will be heavier to tote around. So after a year or so of inhabiting shells, the coconut crab makes a major lifestyle change. It crawls out and hardens the part of its body that was once protected by the shell, regrowing layers of calcium-based tissue. So yes, they start off with sort of that soft spot on the top of your head, only it's on their back, and then that thickens up, and they actually wind up becoming, tougher, if you will. But they also eat dead animals, their own body parts, and each other. That is, in addition to coconuts. Skipping down here in the article from Mental Floss, apparently coconut crabs also have an amazing sense of smell, and that might explain why they're thieves. Yes, you heard that right. Coconut crabs are thieves. Coconut crabs often forage at night. That, would help explain how their sense of smell works, right? Or rather, the good sense of smell explains why they're that nocturnal creature. But they are also known as the robber crabs because they will snatch silverware and other objects and carry them around. Some people have even advanced the gruesome theory that Amelia Earhart's remains are missing because coconut crabs hauled them down into their burrows. That's right, some people claim that coconut crabs actually I don't know if they killed Amelia Earhart, but they definitely disposed of her body. The thievery might be taken to that incredible sense of smell. Coconut crabs ignore objects that have been washed clean of scents, suggesting they may only abscond with things that carry a faint whiff of food. And they're also anti-social. Adult coconut crabs live alone in crevices or burrows. They aggressively guard their privacy. A crab entering another's burrow risks becoming a meal. But that's not the end of their antisocial behavior. When a coconut crab emerges to feed, they keep their distance from one another. To maintain their personal space, they'll announce their presence by ritualized claw waving. Yes, that's right. They wave their claws a la Zoidberg in Futurama, where he does that claw wave thing as he scurries away. And they carry their developing young under their abdomen. After coconut crabs mate, females attach their eggs to special appendages and carry them under their belly. While the young develop inside the eggs, the females hold onto them, sticking near the edge of the sea so that they can periodically moisten the eggs. And, well, the article here on Mental Floss says there's still a lot to learn about coconut crabs because there's not been a lot of studies on them, but more studies need to be done. Now, the question is, why do exoskeletons, things with exoskeletons, not get super huge? Well, I'll answer that, as well as another question that pops into my brain. Why don't people have exoskeletons? Stay tuned to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davy Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook. You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. So why don't humans have exoskeletons? And why are things with exoskeletons generally small? Well, it has to do with physics. And there's actually Berkeley, UC Berkeley has a wonderful presentation that it's very visual, so I obviously cannot go over it on the radio. But they do explain the physics behind why large things cannot have exoskeletons. Because, you know, like, have you ever taken, say, just the toilet paper roll, not the actual roll with all of the paper on it, but just the cardboard roll itself, after all of the toilet paper is gone, and ever just like stacked weights on it? There gets a point to where it will no longer hold and it just collapses on itself. And that's part of the physics of why exoskeleton creatures cannot get very large, is because, well, the limbs would not be able to support all of that weight. Not to mention, if you did wind up getting the limbs large enough to where they could support all of the weight, they would be too heavy to move. Well, there's a website, howstuffworks.com, that they look into the question of why don't humans have exoskeletons. They say probably the biggest reason is that physiologically speaking, it's highly impractical and could actually be pretty dangerous. Many creatures that have exoskeletons experience a process known as molting. They lose their entire outer shell. Unfortunately, the new exoskeleton is not completely intact or finished when they shed the previous one. The time it takes the new encasement to harden is directly related to the size of the creature. The larger the animal, the longer it takes. During this time, it's extremely vulnerable, exposed to the elements, predators, and even disease. Although having real exoskeletons would not be prudent for humans, some folks believe there are reasons for fashioning a wearable variety. Humans aren't the swiftest creatures on Earth, and most of us are limited in the amount of weight that we can pick up and carry. These weaknesses can be fatal on the battlefield. That's why DARPA apparently is investing $50 million to develop an exoskeleton suit for ground troops. I'm surprised it's only $50 million and not $50 billion, because we do know that the U.S. military likes to spend exorbitant amounts of money on things. Getting back into the article, they talk a little bit more about this and say it would be a wearable robotic system that could give soldiers the ability to run faster, carry heavier weapons, and leap over large obstacles. These exoskeleton machines could be equipped with sensors and GPS receivers. And, you know, this just sounds sort of like RoboCop. It sounds like RoboCop. Because remember, RoboCop had a person inside of it. Granted, it was only a head and like a torso and an arm, but there was a person inside of the RoboCop thing. Yes, I know it's hard to believe, but there was a person inside of that suit. But it was that, half man, half machine sort of thing. The article here from How Stuff Works continues. DARPA is also developing computerized fabrics that could be used with exoskeletons to monitor heart and breathing rates. Basically, these wearable machines would give humans enhanced abilities. Imagine a battalion of super soldiers who could lift hundreds of pounds as easily as you or I lift 10 and run twice the normal speed. The potential of non-military applications is also phenomenal. They say if the U.S. military has its way, it will have throngs of super soldiers who can jump higher, run faster, and lift enormous weights by strapping on these exoskeletons. However, developing these devices is expected to take years, if not decades. So there you have it. That only explains part of it, and there are tons of other articles that you could read online explaining why exoskeletons are not practical for larger things. But to answer the question of what's the largest living thing with an exoskeleton, well, what I'm able to find is the largest living thing on land is the coconut crab. And I'm guessing that the largest living thing in the ocean with an exoskeleton is also some kind of crab. But finding that answer is a little harder. Like when you type in largest animal with exoskeleton, everything points to the coconut crab. But I'm guessing, there might be some variant of king crab that might be, about the same size, if not a little larger. But again, there's a bunch of things hiding in the ocean that we don't even know are still there. I'm reminded of the coelacanth. It's a weird fish that lives off the coast of Africa. I forget which side, but lives off the coast of Africa. And people thought that this thing had been extinct for millions of years until people started catching them again in the early 1900s. So it's just really weird, things that everybody thought, oh, that's been dead for millions of years. People just start catching again or finding. So there might be something in the ocean that's larger. I just can't find the answer. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to BIPCOT.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
Hi, this is Davi Barker from ShinyBadges.com, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Now, remember I told you a couple of weeks ago that I was hoping to have an announcement about the fans program? Well, it's finally happened. It has finally happened. Patreon, which is the company that I use to process the payments for the fans program, and it allows me to deliver the some of the perks a little bit easier. One of those perks being the ad-free versions of this podcast, Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, as well as the daily FPP radio news. Yeah, so through Patreon, it allows me to very easily send out those perks to the members of the fans program. Fans, of course, being friends, allies, and Numery supporters. Well, Patreon rolled out a couple of weeks ago an RSS feed. That's right, a custom RSS feed for certain people that offer audio content to their patrons. And, well, I was having a problem because for some reason, the browser that I generally use was not allowing me to upload the audio file in a manner that it would wind up coming through the RSS feed. But I wound up finding a workaround, downloaded a different browser, and it works, which means that this episode of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, I believe this is episode number 364, will be the first audio content that, if you're a member of the fans program, through fans.fppradio.com using Patreon, this is the first episode that you will be able to download as part of, or rather through the RSS feed. So if you haven't yet gotten the email, or you're not yet a member of the fans program, go sign up right now, fans.fppradio.com. You should get an email from Patreon with the RSS feed. And again, these are custom. So if you stop donating, the RSS stops working for you, but continues working for everybody that continues to donate. Fans.fppradio.com. And that's huge, because there was somebody had asked a while back about, is there an RSS feed for the fans versions of the shows? Well, there is now. Thank you very much, Patreon, for doing that. And they're just absolutely amazing. They make it so much easier to deliver ad-free content to people and makes it easy to deliver certain perks. So if you're not a member, fans.fppradio.com. And don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions. Send those over, ama@fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.